KD5ONS Pro. This all came from NEC, the Numerical Electromagnetics Code, which got written sometime in the late 60s, early 70s by, some federal government.
Oh, I thought that was a Nissan Electric company.
It could be. It would be Nippon.
Nippon Electric Company, yeah.
Not in this case. Who is that guy around here who wrote Easy Neck? W7 Llewellyn? Ray
Llewellyn.
W7EL, I think. He's the guy who wrote Easy Neck. My problem was I got a cheaper program when I was down in Albuquerque, which worked on Windows, and it worked very well. And in fact, it allows for more segments. The way you measure an antenna modeling program is how many different segments you can model. And since I was using this for my master's thesis, I wanted to have a lot of elements. And the NetWin Pro is really good because it allows you to put multiple antennas, and you can see what happens where you put your sloper in, your dipole in, and your vertical on your property to see how they interact on various frequencies. And you can see what happens when you put a nice wet hemlock tree next to your dipole. And Stan, you might want to look at NetWin Pro, or else I could give you the software and a stack of manuals like this. And I also took the course from the ARL on modeling, so I could give you that. It's not simple, it's not in a day.
Which software comes with that course?
None of them.
You have to buy the software set up.
But they use, I think,
Easy Neck, I think Roy has put some limited versions out that are free. They do up to
The
like
problem is the limited
elements.
versions have limited number of segments.
Yeah, 500 elements.
Right, which won't allow him to do what he needs to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need to have that sensitivity.
That whole roof probably needs to be modeled with all the verticals on that. And all the
How is it tied to the ground? Is it metallically tied to the ground?
We think
I
the
think
roof.
it is.
We think the roof is grounded.
I think it is. Because there's 3 electrical heads that come up, and they all go back to a communication that's supposed to have.
There is a it is a membrane roof.
Yeah.
So what you see is rubber when you get up there, but
isn't it tied down
The
through
metal
the
on-
rubber with a metal bolt or stud? Or
now I think it's glued down.
you might get away with it then, using it as your reflector.
But the metal roof underneath the membrane is grounded.
The metal's grounded.
but that's the rubberized roof should take that out.
It should, but you're going to have some interesting capacitive effects.
Because that back in Illinois, they had a lot of the rubber or.
We actually did make some contacts on. Stan made some contacts, and the tuner does tune on 75 meters. That tunes on 75 meters.
You can put the tuner in the 756, it'll come down about 1 to 1.
What's the sign on the remaining reactants?
I don't think we pay attention to that, do we?
That's important because you can add an inductor or capacitor externally to get rid of that last little bit.
Okay.
So pay attention to the sign, because that's telling you a lot of important things of you need to add some more of this.
Okay.
We've discussed that, but you do want to look at antenna modeling if you're at all interested in how multiple antennas interact and how your single antenna interacts with various buildings, trees, cliffs, and other things in the ground. But you have to define your type of ground. Some residential lots are dry, some are wet. I'm surrounded by a lot of trees, so I need to worry about species, because fir trees aren't nearly as bad as the hemlock and the cedar.
And falling trees in your face.
Yeah, that's a real problem, but I don't really want to talk about that. We need to talk about polarization. Ben gave me an example last night where you had a half-wave dipole.
I had a dipole, right? 2 meter dipole.
It was a 2 meter dipole. Imagine this has another side to it. And he had it horizontally.
I hung it up in a tree, and I said, well, let me see if I can get out to talk to the repeater. And I couldn't even get into the repeater. I said, what's going on? Even the local repeater I couldn't get into. I said, I can holler at this repeater and get into it. I said, wait a minute. Turn the antenna the other way.
And all of a sudden he was getting in full quiet. So when you have two quarter wave verticals, your quarter wave vertical is like this, your buddy's is over here like this, there's a 26 dB difference. Every 3 dBs is a doubling or a halving. You're losing a lot of power by not being oriented the same way. Doesn't really matter if they're, but they have to be the same. I got in this argument with these robotics people that were working with all these electronics around these little stubby antennas, and why can't we connect? And I'm going, your ground plane is terrible, and that antenna over there is like this antenna is over, if you aim them the same way, so they tried fiddling with it, and they looked at me because it worked. Oh well. Single sideband is horizontally polarized. That's why I got these. In New Mexico, we did a lot of weak signal work, and this is a 2-meter half-wave loop. So for me to get out on an omnidirectional manner on single sideband, this worked really well. But when we're out T-hunting, looking for little transmitters, you aim it like this, because now I can actually aim it at you, and I'm pointing a null. So I know that if I lose the signal, when I point it right there, either the antenna's there or there.
Basically, the two sides of the antenna are out of phase, and if they're exactly the same, it's zeros, it's a null.
But if the signal should come in like this very, very well, so I can then point and say it's either here or here. There's another antenna that they put in called a sense antenna, which is a vertical, and when you're getting closer and closer to your transmitter, you will hit that, and it's oriented like this to your sensing, or to your regular antenna.
Kevin, we were talking last time that you were using SS single sideband to go long distance on 2-meter like to Hawaii and Asia. Now, would you be using that?
Single sideband, yes.
So would you put multiple loops in?
You stack them, you phase them. So you can put one, what you're doing is putting them a half a wavelength apart by the coax. So you need the velocity factor of your coax, you need the wavelength, and you measure out how much coax between them. You put them that far apart, and you can make stacks of them. Like stacking your Yagis, they have to be
So
phased.
that would be better, you think that would be better than stacking Yagis?
These are cheaper. And the reason I wanted this is it's omnidirectional. If you want to talk to everybody, you don't want the Yagi, because as you stack them, your bandwidth, your beam width goes closer and closer and tighter and tighter and tighter in both dimensions. And I could pick out Rob as compared to you if I make it tight enough, or if I add enough directors. Normally there's only one reflector on a Yagi, one driven element, and then you can add dozens of directors. But for single sideband, this at roof level should be able to get you about 200 miles.
Why horizontally for single sideband?
Tradition.
Yeah.
That's
Tradition
because
only?
Tradition.
Because the people on the other end are expecting you to be horizontal. That's why they have their antenna horizontally
That's it.
polarized.
But there's no inherent propagation reason relative. I mean, certainly, especially if you're getting some tropospheric ducting or something like that, that will smear out the phase or the polarization, I would assume.
If you're going to go through some of those, you want to go with elliptical.
Yeah.
Because, especially if you're going through various levels of the ionosphere, because it's rotating your phase.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you go through a layer of the ionosphere, it could be turned totally upside down. So it might be in phase horizontal, but it's going through a full rotation to get there. So you might want, that's why the satellite, when you look at the satellite TV, when they're channel whatever TV news is out there and they're trying to hit their satellite, that's why they have those elliptical polarized antennas, or circular polarized antennas. Because they're aiming up at their satellite's coming down, and every time it comes through a layer of the ionosphere, it twists it. So if I had either one of these antennas, which have preferential vertical horizontal orientations, I don't know, because depending upon how active the ionosphere is at every single level, your beam has changed. Your RF is getting rotated. The phase angle changes all the time, and it could be at 45 degrees.